What's up, guys? How's it going? We have a special video today. This one and the next two videos are by request, so we're starting off with Captain Vargas Wrath. Captain Vargas Wrath is an awesome pirate commander that can do some really cool things, which I think is underrated. This commander came out in Commander Legends. There were a couple more pirate commanders that came out, but Captain Vargas was forgotten about, and it's really sad because like a lot of good commanders came out, and of course some fall through the cracks. On this channel we have covered other commanders from that same set that have fallen through the cracks that people maybe forgot about or didn't know about, and Captain Vargas is one of those diamond in the rough commanders that you're just not going to see, and it's really sad for how good it is. So with Captain Vargas Wrath, Captain Vargas is a 2-drop commander, 1 red, 1 blue, 1/1, power and toughness, legendary creature, orc pirate with pirate tribal. So whenever Captain Vargas attacks, pirates you control get +1/+1 until the end of the turn for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. So what you can think about this, if you're an experienced player and you know about Magic, let's say you've played it for a long time, Captain Vargas reads pirate creatures you control get +1/+1 for each experience counter Captain Vargas has. That's pretty much what he's saying. So experience counters were something in the game where you did something and those counters never went away, so they kind of brought that back. But the thing with this is that you keep track of it in the game off to the side, so no one can ever take that away from you. Each time you cast Captain Vargas from the command zone, you keep track of that number. So let's say for example you have a way to get him back to the command zone, which there are cards that do that, and then cast him for free. Let's say you just keep doing that, right? Let's say you do that 5 times. That means all your pirates are going to get +5/+5 for the rest of the game whenever he attacks. So you want to go aggro, you want to go fast, and pirates are meant to do that, especially in red and blue. So you have a lot of options. Here on EDH Rec we see pirate tribal, and then we also see treasures. So treasures are, to help you gain the mana ramp to keep casting him or just to cast other pirates. But something I would like to bring up is just forced attack. Forced attack is another option that you have. Forced attack is where you force your opponents to attack each other or to just attack in general. And then from there, you're leaving your opponent's wide open because their creatures are already tapped. So we're going to get into some of that stuff in the stats, where we're going to cover combos and suggestions and stuff like that. But if you're looking for creatures, this is a great place to start on EDH Rec, so you can see what options you have, see what other people are playing, and also just see like what you could possibly be looking into. When it comes to pirate tribal, it's very straightforward, which is cool. You do have a lot of really cool cards that can do a lot of things. You have a couple pirates that do some really awesome things, like Angrath Marauders, which double damage that you deal to players and permanents, and that is a pirate that you really want to get out. You also have Port Razor, which gives you additional attack triggers. You have Captain Lannery Storm, which whenever she attacks, she makes a treasure token, and there are ways to copy that effect. There are so many things you can do with pirates, so the fact that you're going to be pumping them up is really good, especially when you have pirates like Kairi Zev, which can make you a little token creature to attack with as well, so you're never attacking alone. Like there's so many things, but let's get into the stats and let's see what we can come up with. Alright, so let's talk about Captain Sargus Wrath, which I keep wanting to say Sargus Russ. That's a character from somewhere else. Is it Captain Sergeant Wrath? Anyway, so Captain Vargas Wrath is pretty interesting because he targets all pirates you control with his attack trigger. The interesting thing about Captain Vargas is that he also targets himself. Let me get into this. So whenever Captain Vargas Wrath attacks, all right, keep in mind, whenever he attacks, pirates you control get +1/+1 until the end of turn for each time you've cast him. So let's say you have multiple Captain Vargas. Now there are cards like Sakashima, Helm of the Host, and some other cards that copy creatures and make non-legendary versions of them or get past the legendary rule. And for every time you have a copy of Captain Vargas, that effect stacks. So since he also targets himself with his own buff, if you have a card like Helm of the Host or, like I said, Sakashima or something else that clones him and has the name of him but is non-legendary, that literal stacks twice. So if you've summoned him once from the command zone but you have a clone of him, now you get +2/+2 to all your pirates because 2 Captain Vargases are attacking. You see what I mean here? So that's something that you can think about early on if you want to really maximize Captain Vargas's effect, because it is a good effect. You know, he is a 2-drop 1/1 commander, and it's like, okay, yes, he's gonna die to a lot, but they kind of made him in a way where you kind of want him to die, you know, so that way you can keep casting him, but at the same time making those copies and getting stacks of those triggers going multiple times, you can actually go pretty fast and get your creatures to a pretty decent size, maybe getting him up to a 2/2 or 2/3 the first time he swings, or maybe after a couple times. Like we've mentioned before, there are a couple cards that can get him back to the command zone, so that way you can cast him again, because even if you do return him on your own, when you cast him again, he's still getting the trigger, so he doesn't have to per se die or be exiled just to go back to the command zone and be cast from there. So of course with Captain Vargas, you're going to want to run a lot and I mean a lot of artifact ramp. You're in red and blue, so you're going to need as much mana ramp as you can, but that's kind of the good thing because pirates care about artifacts, and artifacts are considered treasure, you know, going with the whole pirate theme. Once you start getting into treasure, you start getting into treasure tokens, and that gives you extra mana, which leads into some very interesting things. So you have the ability to kind of blend what makes pirates with this tribal deck by having it so that they're going to what is that term? They're going to raid, you know, your opponents, you know, attacking them, destroying their stuff, and then they're also going to, you know, steal their treasure. You know, you can get treasure, and they also might take a couple hostages along the way, which is pretty cool. So as far as pirates go, you have a very wide range of ways to play, where Captain Vargas, whether you want to use him at the command or not, if you want to just use him for the colors because he's a 2-drop, he can come in early, you know, turn 2 or even turn 1, depending on however your mana base is set up. You know, you can get him out pretty early and then swing that next turn, which is really good. But he's going to long term help you out and help out your arsenal. Crew gonna help out your crew to really do a lot of damage to your opponents. So keep in mind, just right off the bat, like if you want to really maximize that effect, keep in mind that you can clone him, but there are a lot of good pirates. So let's get into other things that can help support him and help support his strategy and maybe get him out to the field faster and more often. All right, so there are 2 reasons as to why we want artifact ramp and artifacts. Like I said before, we can also make a lot of mana, not from just the artifacts, but from the treasures, you know, especially when you're running around talking about treat me like a pirate and give me that booty. You've got to get as much treasure as possible, but there's a reason for that. This leads into one of our win cons, so I'll get into that in a second. But like I was saying, with Captain Vargas Wrath, you don't mind if he dies multiple times. He's kind of a bring out early and just swing with reckless abandon every time you get a chance, because every time he dies, you're bringing him back. He's making himself and other pirates stronger. So you're going to need to pay for that commander tax every time he comes back, and also other, effects, other things that will help out your pirates, but mainly you want to pay for that commander tax because it's going to start to get pricey. Luckily, like I said, he's 2, so once he dies, or if he goes back to the command zone and you cast him again from the command zone, he's going to cost 4, and so on and so on and so on. So with all the mana rocks that we have available, from the soul rings to the arcane signets, which will be up on screen, Sisei's ring, etc., we have a lot of mana rocks that are available, and luckily, we're starting from a CMC of 1 to 4. We're going to get benefit out of them. Some of them will be able to sack and draw cards later on in the game, cards like Commander Sphere, or even the Is It Lockets, or the Is It Clue Stones, etc. There are cards that allow you to sack them off to draw cards, so if you're in a pinch, but I don't think we'll really be worried about that with this deck. You really want to keep these artifacts on the field as much as possible, because getting into the win con, there are a couple different win cons, and one of them is a dragon. So Kite Tyrant is one of these creatures that just wins you the game, quite literally and figuratively. So when he attacks, he takes all artifacts that player controls, and when you have 20 or more artifacts, you win the game. He'll be up on screen for you to see him. He is one of our win cons, but since he's not a pirate, you kind of just want to make a bunch of treasures, have all your mana rocks, steal other people's mana rocks, and then if you have that win con, you feel like no one's going to be able to stop you, play Kite Tyrant. Even if you don't have to attack, just if you have the treasure tokens, which you're going to get treasure tokens in this deck, which count as artifacts, you're going to be able to just win. Just sit there, look pretty, comes back to your turn, you win. Another win con that we have with all these artifacts that we're going to make is another pirate by the name of Fathom Fleet Swordjack. Fathom Fleet Swordjack is another orc pirate, which is pretty cool. And Fathom Fleet Swordjack, that's one heck of a name to say. Whenever Swordjack, we'll just go with that, attacks, it deals damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking equal to the number of artifacts you control. That's why I said all these artifacts are going to lead into something. So once you get Swordjack, all of these artifacts that you have, whether they're the mana rocks or artifact creatures even, or artifact tokens, are going to be weaponized to where you can then just hit people for large amounts of damage. Along with that, Swordjack also has Encore. Encore is an interesting ability where with Encore for Swordjack, you pay 5 and a red, and then you exile this card from your graveyard. For each opponent, create a token copy that attacks that opponent this turn if able. The creature that comes in gains haste, and you have to sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So he can literally just one-shot all of your opponents by making tokens. Let's say somebody board wipes, he's in the graveyard. Now you have something in your graveyard where you're like, I can kill you guys at any given moment. Once you have enough artifacts, let's say you have 30 artifacts on the field, or even like 25. It's getting towards the end of the game. People's life totals are starting to get low, like around the 20s or 30s, or like mid-range, or even like the 10s. And then you have him in the graveyard, you have all this mana, you pay that cost, you exile him. Every opponent now has a Swordjack attacking them. How cool is that? And then all those Swordjacks are going to see all the artifacts that you have on the field and deal that damage. And that's how you end games with pirates right there. That's the best way to just sneak attack somebody. While we are in the nature of dealing damage, let's talk about some ways to get treasure tokens specifically, because you want to make these treasure tokens to play more pirates, draw more cards, do more damage, etc. Since we're doing a mixture of pirates and treasure tokens, because they kind of just go hand in hand, it'll make things easier to explain as we go on. So first up, the card that I really want to talk about, which can help you out a lot, is called Storm the Vault. Storm the Vault is a double-sided card. The front side, Storm the Vault, which we'll talk about first, is an enchantment. It is a 4-drop legendary enchantment, and it says whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap, sacrifice this artifact to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. And then it also reads, at the beginning of your end step, if you control 5 or more artifacts, transform Storm the Vault. So when it transforms into a legendary land. This legendary land is called Vault of Katakon, or Katakon. Anyway, and this card is really cool because it is a more up-to-date version of a banned card. So the banned card being Tolarian, I think it was Tolarian Academy? I forgot. You know what I mean. You can look it up. It's banned. Don't worry about it. But this land turns into tap 1 for any color of mana added to your pool. But the second effect that it has is that you can tap, add blue mana to your mana pool for each artifact you control. So with that, having a bunch of treasure tokens, having a bunch of mana rocks, having a bunch of artifacts in general, you can just tap and make 20, 30, 40, 50 blue mana, which can also lead into infinite mana combos, but that's a little bit above this video spectrum. But the fact is that Storm the Vault rewards you for attacking. So just attacking with your pirates, attacking with your captain, you're going to be rewarded for getting in and dealing damage. The moment you get this card, if you have a big field, if you have a small field, as long as you're getting in and doing damage, you're going to get rewarded with treasure tokens, and that treasure tokens are going to lead into you doing amazing things later on. There are some other cards that will reward you for dealing damage. Cards like Reconnaissance Mission, which is an enchantment, same cost. It's a 4-drop, except it's 2 blue and 2 colorless, where Storm the Vault was a red, a blue, and 2 colorless. And Reconnaissance Mission is whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. So you can draw cards, you can get treasure, you can excel your deck. And there are a couple other cards that are just like Reconnaissance Mission. So you have Coastal Piracy, which is literally the same thing, except Coastal Piracy doesn't have the effect of you can cycle it if you don't need it. So Reconnaissance Mission has cycling for 2, which means if you don't need this card, let's say it's really late in the game, you don't need to draw more cards. It's not going to matter anymore if you draw more cards. You're pretty much at the end of the game. You can just send it to the graveyard and draw a card in its place by paying the cycling cost. With Coastal Piracy, you don't have that option. So personally, I see Reconnaissance Mission as a better version of Coastal Piracy, but they do exactly the same thing. And then you also have Bident of Thassa, which is another card which is very similar, just the same thing. Bident of Thassa is 2 colorless, 2 blue, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. But it also has an additional effect, which is why I consider it better than Coastal Piracy as well, where you can pay a colorless and a blue. Creatures your opponents control attack this turn if able. So if you've already got a lot of bonuses on your side of the field, which we'll get into later, there are ways to buff up your pirates, or let's say you just got your field really strong, you don't feel like you're a threat, or maybe you've gained life somehow, You can just make your opponents attack. It doesn't have to attack you. They can attack whoever, but they have to attack, which makes it so that once they attack, you don't have to block if they attack you. You know, some people will attack you and be like, hey, you're making me attack, so I'm gonna attack you. And it's like, that's okay. If you can survive the hit, they're wide open because they're not going to have any blockers, which lets you get in, do damage, draw cards, make treasure tokens, and you're getting ultimately to your win goal faster. So that is something that you can do. There are other cards that are a little bit more expensive that help you with the strategy if you want to draw cards and just, you know, progress in the game faster. One of them being Kindred Discovery. Kindred Discovery is around $20, $30 depending. Kindred Discovery is 3 colorless, 2 blue, and when it enters the battlefield, it's an enchantment. Choose a creature type. Of course, we'll be choosing pirates. So whenever a creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. So this card will literally excel your deck, because if a pirate enters the battlefield, you draw a card. Whenever you attack with a pirate, you draw a card. So you're going to be digging into your deeper faster, getting those answers, and thriving where your opponents are just going to be left behind, because you're going to have answers, you're going to have cards in hand. And there's ways of course to have no maximum hand size, which is really easy. But that's just something that can help you out. It's $20. It's a bit expensive, but if you have a friend that can help you out with that, that is a great way to go. Speaking of creatures entering the battlefield, there is another card I'm going to talk about which can help you deal more damage. Since a lot of the pirates you're going to have are non-legendary creatures, we were talking about cloning Captain Vargas before to get multiple triggers, but what if you clone your pirates? Because a lot of pirates have ETB triggers. When they enter the battlefield, they get you treasure or they do something. This way you can double up on those non-legendary pirates and get more uses out of them. A card called Reflections of Litjara. Reflections of Litjara is another card kind of like Kindred Discovery, where it's an enchantment for 5. And when it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type. So whenever you cast a spell of that creature type, copy it. So you're going to get multiple pirates. And then there's another card that's very similar to it, Molten Echoes, where Molten Echoes also is an enchantment. It costs 4, double red. And it also has the ability, when it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. We're choosing pirates as always with this deck. And whenever a non-token creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield under your control, create a token copy of that creature card, and it gains haste and exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So with Molten Echoes, you only get to keep those copies for the turn, but if you have Reflections of Litjara and Molten Echoes on the field at the same time, you're making 2 copies of one of your non-legendary pirates. Now, one of those copies will go away at the end of the turn, but the other one stays, because Reflections of Litjara, that copy stays permanently on the field. But it doesn't gain haste, so at least the Molten Echoes copy gains haste immediately so that it can attack. The other one doesn't, but there are ways to give all your creatures haste since you are in red. So that's kind of like something that you can just think about, where you're going to have this aggressive mindset where you want to attack. You know, maybe you don't want to attack with the creature that you're summoning, you know, the pirate that you're summoning, but if you have a copy of that pirate, you can attack with that pirate, the copies and the tokens, and then leave the original behind to block if someone wants to attack you when you use a card like Biden of Thassa to force all of your opponents to attack. So now we're going to look at some very interesting pirates that can help you, you know, deal damage, have a board presence. First, we're going to look at a couple legendary pirates to go with Captain Vargas, who also came out in the same set, who you really want to add to your arsenal or the crew of your ship, I guess you could say. The first one being Zara, Renegade Recruiter, and then the next one being Malcolm, Keen-Eyed Navigator. Zara has a very interesting effect where she is a 5-drop legendary creature, human pirate with flying, and whenever she attacks, you look at the defending player's hand, pick a creature from their hand, put it on the battlefield, and have it attack them. And then it goes back to their hand at the beginning of your next Insta. This is really cool because you want to go wide with pirates already. And there's a reason, you want your pirates to get in. This is an interesting form of evasion where you're stealing a creature. You're literally taking a hostage and putting, I'm not going to say the situation, but if you know about pirates, this is pretty interesting. You're taking a creature and pretty much saying, attack your captain, or else we make you walk the plank, something ridiculous like that. But that's really cool because then you get to know what's in their hand. So if it's a really good creature, because it doesn't target, you don't have to cast it, it comes in tapped and attacking. So let's say your opponent has a really big creature like an Eldrazi or a Blightsteel or something like that. You get that creature for free and it attacks them, and then everyone else knows that they have this really good creature in their hand because you're putting it back in their hand. So now you're kind of like putting the pressure on them and getting the pressure off of yourself. So you want to be able to watch your opponents and see what they're playing, ask them about their commanders, ask them about their decks, see what, get this idea of what they're playing, so that way when Zara hits the field, you know who you want to go after because they'll have a big creature or a rewarding creature that might give you some really good benefits or might cause some pressure and make that person the target because their strategy is exposed and they might already have some big winning pieces, in their hand already. So with Malcolm, Keen-Eyed Navigator, going with the deals damage strategy, Malcolm is a 3-drop, 2 colorless, 1 blue, legendary creature Siren Pirate with flying, and has whenever one or more pirates you control deals damage to your opponents, create a treasure token for each opponent dealt damage. So, like I said, going wide, with Zara, you're stealing someone's creature from their hand and attacking them with that creature. So they really want to block that creature, where Malcolm then rewards you for allowing your pirates to get in. See, there's kind of like a combo here that you can see. And again, going with Captain Vargas, if you clone Zara, you get multiple triggers of this. With Malcolm, I don't think you'll get multiple triggers because of the specific wording that it has. But with Zara and Captain Vargas, if you create copies of them, whether it's Helm of the Host or Sakashima, there are other cards that do that where you can make non-legendary tokens of them or copies of them. You can get more and more. So that way you can beef up Zara with Captain Vargas, and then with Zara you can maybe steal a creature from every opponent's hand. If you create 3 Zaras and attack your opponents, that's 3 creatures that are coming at them that they need to worry about, obviously. So those are some really good legendary pirates just to look at really fast, that you really want to add in to your deck. A couple other pirates that you want to look at, because pirates, I won't get into every pirate, but a lot of pirates have enter the battlefield triggers where when they enter the battlefield, you create a treasure token. You really want those pirates because they're going to help you get more artifacts to help you win the game when you get your Kite Tyrant, or when you get your Sword Jack pirate, who will deal damage based off the number of artifacts that you have. But another good pirate to look at is Angrath Marauders. Angrath's Marauders, some of these names, is really great to have because even though this is a 7-drop pirate, you pay 5 colorless, 2 red, for a creature human pirate. If a source would deal damage to a permanent or player, it doubles that damage to that permanent or player instead. So with Angrath's Marauders, oh my god, you can make copies of Angrath's Marauders. So Angrath's Marauders are already coming in as 4/4s. They're pretty big. They're doubling damage. But remember, like we were saying before, with Mana Echoes and with Reflections, the 2 enchantments that allow you to make copies. And then of course we have other ways to copy, since that seems to be a theme that we're going with in this deck, to copy or make tokens of these creatures. We can then double, triple, quadruple, quadruple this damage and just one-shot somebody. So imagine you have 2 Angrath Marauders on the field, and then you also have 3 Swordjacks on the field from the Encore effect. That's game right there. I mean, that's another way to just finish off your opponents. This deck is really aggressive, and it has a lot of really good key pieces that help you get to this end game that we're going for, per se. And with Angrath's Marauders, that's a really good way to do it, to just, you know, build up that damage, one-shot somebody, or just take out all of your opponents at once. Another good card to look at is Port Razor. Port Razor is another 5-drop pirate. It's an orc pirate, 3 colorless, 2 red, and what it does is whenever Port Razor deals combat damage to a player, untap each creature you control. After this combat phase, there's an additional combat phase, and it also says Port Razor can't attack a player it's already attacked this turn. So what happens is, this is a good scenario for Zara as well as also with Captain Vargas. So with Port Razor, you can attack each opponent in 1 turn per se. But with Zara, that means you get an additional combat step. So with Zara on the field, with Malcolm, and with Captain Vargas, you're going to get additional bonuses. Port Razor is another 4/4. With Angrath Marauders, that is a 4/4, so they're going to get bigger. So they're going to be more than 5 just with Captain Vargas being on the battlefield. With Zara, you're going to steal your opponent's creatures, so you're going to get more attacks with that same creature if it stays alive after the first attack. And like, this is just awesome. This is exactly what you want. You know, when you're thinking about aggression, dealing damage, how are you going to get in? What are you going to use? Pirates already have this built-in system where they want to attack, you know, they want to group up, they want to gain treasure and, you know, take hostages, you know, all this stuff. So I think that's really cool. And continuing with that, with Port Razor, we're going to talk about Captain Lannery Storm. Captain Lannery Storm is one of my favorite pirates in all of Magic. She was my first favorite pirate. She is a 3-drop, 2 colorless, 1 red, legendary creature human pirate with haste, and has whenever Captain Lannery Storm attacks, create a treasure token. You may sacrifice a treasure token. Let me say that properly. Whenever you sacrifice a treasure token, Captain Lannery Storm gets +1/+0. So she makes herself stronger, but you really don't need to focus on that because Captain Vargas is going to make her stronger already. You know, she's coming down with haste, so she's already attacking. You attack, you get mana ramp, you know, you get a treasure token, which is helping you towards that auto win with Kite Tyrant, or even with Swordjack. You see how everything's kind of coming together. So with pirates, you have a lot of options. And like I said, there are a lot more pirates that you can look at on EDH Rec, where they have a lot of pirates listed that will show you where some pirates, as long as you've attacked that turn, you can draw a card and discard a card. That mechanic is called Raid, I believe. I believe it was called Raid. Yes, it was called Raid. So, you know, at the beginning of your end step, if you attacked with a creature this turn, then the effect activates. So as long as you've attacked, so there are a lot of creatures that want you to attack. Pirates want to attack, especially in red. You're going to see that effect a lot. They want to attack, they want to be aggressive. You know, the blue pirates are more of the support type pirates where they're like, you know, buffing up other pirates, or even like Time Stream Navigator giving you extra turns. You have Kite Marauder, which can make which can make one creature that defending player has lose all of its abilities and become a 0/1, so it's pretty much harmless. There are a lot of different pirates that do a lot of different things that help each other, and that's kind of one of the things about pirates, is it can feel a little overwhelming because there's so many different pirates that do so many things. If it's not the pirates that enter the battlefield and create treasure tokens, it feels like it can be just too much because they do so much. But honestly, once you get them all on the field, it's kind of like a race. You want to get all your pirates together. You want them all to be on the field together, kind of like in one ship, and then you want to go and just raid and pillage some town. Sorry for the pirate references, but I can't help it. So that's kind of the theme of pirates, is just group them all up together, get them their bonuses that they want off of each other because they're attacking as a group. They're getting bigger together. There's advantage in numbers, and that's what they believe in. So definitely take a look at pirates and see what you have, see what you can get. And if you love that aggressive style where your creatures are going to get big, they're going to have effects, you have an ability that wins you the game automatically pretty much, or if you have the ability to grow with a deck. The good thing about pirates is that you do have the ability to grow. I mentioned before that there are ways to create infinite mana with them, which is something that once you become a more experienced player, or if you're already an experienced player, those are things that you can look at and improve upon. There's a lot of things in red and blue that you can improve upon already. There are a lot more things that I could talk about, but I think this is a good starter as far as looking at a tribe, looking at something that has a really good amount of support with a lot of varying ways to play, where they can kind of just fit any different situation, because every pirate is an individual that brings something to the rest of the pirates, and that's something that you really want to have as a tribe. When you're bringing tribes together, you want them to support each other in some type of way, where Captain Vargas kind of brings them all together under one banner, increasing their attack, making them do what they want to do. And then you have those other key supporting pirates that help out in other ways for the greater good of all the pirates. So if you're looking for a starter deck list, there will be one in the description. I've made one on Arcadeck that you can look at, which has the prices and has just a really good list of just a general way to start that isn't too expensive. I mean, it's going to kind of be expensive because you need a lot of things, but there are a lot of ways to upgrade pirates, and I think that's the really cool thing about them. Even if we don't get a lot of them, even if we're not going to get another full set of pirates in the future, at least we have supporting cards that can keep them, and they have a lot of support themselves that can keep themselves going, where they can move with the times, and they can move with you if you're a starting player going to an advanced player, and learning about different strategies, different combos, different color combinations. It's a great way to just grow and build as a player. So that's it for me. We've got more videos coming up this week. This was the first of 3 by request, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.